Hey everyone, I'm Beck, and welcome back to Diving into Marvel Comics. In this episode, we'll be covering our first story but final entry in the prologue chapter of the Continuity Guide, the Sentry. So the Sentry event is a 10-issue run that starts with the Sentry issues 1 through 5, and then we get 4 one-shots where the Sentry teams up with different Marvel heroes, all building toward a final issue where the Sentry and some heroes battle against the Void. These comics were released in 2000 and 2001. The main series and one-shot are all written by Paul Jenkins. The pencil and ink for the main series and the Sentry vs. the Void are done by Jae Lee, with the color done by José Villarrubia. Each one-shot has a different artist though, which makes for some really cool variations. Full credits and details along with the link to the prologue page of the Continuity Guide are in the description. Okay, let's get into it. So the Sentry opens with this guy, Robert Reynolds, or Bob, who just seems like a completely normal dude with a wife and a dog. He's jerked awake during a thunderstorm, but was it thunder or an eerily familiar laugh? He tries to shrug it off, but Bob starts feeling like he's forgetting something really important. But at the same time, he's also starting to remember things that just don't make sense. Like he suddenly recalls being a superhero. Not just any superhero, but the Sentry, this insanely powerful Superman-level figure. But he's not even sure if that's real, or if it's just something from a comic he read. As the issue goes on, his memory gets worse and better at the same time. He can't remember basic things about his own life, but then he vividly remembers getting his powers from this experimental serum and even needing stronger and stronger doses of it. Eventually, he finds a bottle of that same serum in his house and takes a tiny bit just to try and focus. And that's when things get even more confusing. He starts hallucinating that this dark presence called the Void has taken over his dog. In his fear, he lashes out at the dog and ends up passing out. His wife, Lindy, finds him passed out, and at this point, she's clearly terrified of him, thinking that maybe he relapsed with alcohol. So she takes the dog and leaves. And the issue ends with Bob fully leaning into this idea that he is the Sentry. He throws on this makeshift costume, literally just a jacket with a towel cape clipped on with clothespins, and just flies off into the night, convinced he needs to go save the world. So now you're left wondering, who exactly is this guy? We've never heard of the Sentry before now. So this next issue is where some other heroes start getting involved. Bob goes straight to what looks like a destroyed Baxter building, the home of the Fantastic Four. He's balancing on top when Mr. Fantastic shows up to ask who he is and what he wants. Hoping Reed, Mr. Fantastic, will remember his best friend, Bob tries to explain who he thinks he is, but Reed has absolutely no recollection of him. So, Bob decides to move on, but as he's leaving, he just drops one word: unicorn. Reed goes back home and tells Sue, his wife, and also the Invisible Woman, about it, and neither of them remember Bob, but something about the whole interaction feels wrong. Like there's something they're supposed to know, but they just can't get to it. Then, Reed notices this unicorn statue in the room, and that's what triggers it. A flash of memory at a wedding where Reed was the Sentry's best man. They find a hidden videotape, play it, and it's Reed recording himself. He basically says, "If you're watching this, it means we've already lost." Issue 3 brings in even more heroes to the mix. First, the Sentry approaches the Hulk, and what do you know? The Hulk remembers him. He even calls him the Golden Man and asks if the Shadow Man is coming back. Bob confirms the bad news and gives the Hulk a golden glowing artifact to hold on to. Meanwhile, Mr. Fantastic starts to dig into Bob Reynolds, like background checks and witness protection stuff, because who the heck is this guy? Next, Bob approaches Spider-Man and tries to convince him they've worked together before. He even uses Peter Parker's real name, but Peter can't seem to remember him and ends up leaving before Bob can try to explain more. The Sentry's parting advice is to check the misnumbered magazines as Spidey swings away. Back at Reed's investigation, none other than Doctor Strange pops up out of thin air and confirms everything. Yes, this man does exist, but remembering him will come at a cost. Issue 4 picks up with Doctor Strange and Reed discussing the existence of the Sentry and how Reed and Strange were the ones to make everyone forget about him. And even showing Reed a memory where Reed begged Doctor Strange to make sure people would forget about the Sentry if anyone ever remembered him. Meanwhile, across Europe, heroes are facing something evil coming from the shadows of a large black cloud making its way over the continent. The The Sentry, still on his mission to get people to remember him, visits Charles Xavier of the X-Men, and later Tony Stark. Both men feel as though they recognize him, but aren't supposed to. However, Peter Parker finally remembers the Sentry at last, recalling that he photographed the Sentry for a magazine cover, so that's great news. Or maybe not. As the Sentry keeps hunting for answers, trying desperately to remember why he was sent away to be some ordinary guy with no one, not even himself, remembering who he really is, he stumbles across something. A big something. He finds the Watchtower. It seems like it used to be a base of some sort for him and his sidekick Billy. Turns out, Billy was mortally wounded once upon a time, but he's still alive, and surprise, also does not remember who the Sentry is. Now, the final issue, the Sentry issue 5, where everything is still super confusing at the end. Sentry flies up to his watchtower, and like any superhero, has one of those little computers that he talks to like a little assistant. Anyway, it turns out that Mr. Fantastic planted a looping virus in the computer, and also a transmitter on top of the tower. So, naturally, Bob turns off the transmitter, and just like that, reality warps, and everyone starts to remember the Sentry. With the memories comes a betrayal. The Sentry was supposedly killed, and at his funeral, Reed Richards labeled him a traitor and common criminal. Gasp. That's actually super wild considering they were besties. There's gotta be a reason though, right? With that, Sentry goes back to his house to find Lindy, and she apologizes saying she remembers everything. But suddenly, she's kidnapped by the Void. Another gasp. The Sentry then calls on the other heroes to join him in his fight against the Void to save the world. Many heroes joined him, including his sidekick, Billy, also known as Scout. When Mr. Fantastic arrived, the Sentry confronted him for betraying him, except Reed doesn't know why he did it, and claims he would never hurt his friend. Then, our heroes wait, while the Void was still minutes away, and the Sentry began wondering if he was really a hero. Now we move on to the one-shots, where we get to reminisce on all the superhero stuff the Sentry would do with the other heroes. I really liked reading these comics because they all have a different vibe to them due to the different artists, and it was a way to introduce some of the main heroes of the 616 universe. These one-shots are basically lost memories coming back to the characters. They don't move the plot forward in the present day, but they show us the deep roots Bob supposedly had in the Marvel Universe. First up, we have the Sentry and Fantastic Four. I really like how they did the art in this issue because it gives a Silver Age feel to it, which demonstrates how long the Sentry was actually around. The main takeaway from this issue is the friendship between Reed and Bob. Nothing super plot-heavy except the Cosmic Cube made an appearance. It's pretty much just a powerful device that can warp reality, and Bob saves the day by using the E-nullifier to harness its inconsistencies at a quantum level, and I have absolutely no idea what that means. Next up, we have the Sentry and the Hulk, and this is my favorite art in this one-shot collection. It's very chaotic, with more jagged lines instead of that clean look a lot of comics have. The colors pair so well with the sketchings, and it makes you feel like you're in a fever dream. From this issue, we learn that the Sentry was the only person Hulk felt like he could trust. He took Bruce under his wing and taught him how to control his powers. We also learn that the Hulk faced the Void last time, and lost pretty badly, so he's afraid of the battle to come. The Sentry and Spider-Man comic was one I was really looking forward to, because Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes. But honestly, there wasn't a lot of lore here. The Sentry and Spider-Man fought some kind of mashup of the Void and Kingpin together, and then Bob let Peter take a pretty sick photo of him for a magazine cover, and that won Pete a Pulitzer. Finally, to close out our teamwork one-shots, the Sentry and X-Men. This one is pretty straightforward. The Sentry and X-Men fight another of Sentry's nemeses, the General, and they end up winning due to a pep talk the Sentry gave to Angel, now known as Archangel. And that's pretty much it. Now to close out the Sentry story, and with that, the prologue of the Continuity Guide. Thank you so much for listening up to this point. A kind review and subscribing would go a long way to get this podcast going. If you've enjoyed it so far, recommend it to another Marvel fan so they can listen to cool comic stories. Okay, back to the finale. The Sentry versus the Void brings everything to a head for our superheroes. The Void attacks the city, and as the Void is wreaking havoc, Mr. Fantastic finally remembers. The Sentry is the Void. The Void is the dark manifestation of the Sentry's powers. and being so is immensely powerful and basically undefeatable. The only way to defeat the Void is to not only defeat the Sentry, but to completely erase him. So it's revealed that everyone faked the Sentry's death and erased all memory of him through mass hypnosis. Reed even labeled the Sentry as a traitor in order for the population to accept the hypnosis more easily, to want to forget the Sentry. So the only solution is to do it all again. Reed, Strange, and Bob all go to the watchtower and activate the transmitter once more, causing everyone to lose their memory of the Sentry. The ending cuts to Bob and Lindy driving through the ruins of New York. The news reports that the destruction was caused by a temporal anomaly in the heart of a hurricane. As Bob and Lindy stop at a burger joint, Bob sees Billy working and pauses, a vague memory of eating chili dogs together as hero and sidekick. With a smirk, Bob orders a chili dog. And that's it. That's the end of the last issue. You know, when I first read this series, I was so confused, but the more I understood it, the more I liked it. One thing I really liked was that the Sentry is a commentary on mental health, which is why the Void exists at all. The Sentry, or really Bob Reynolds, has dissociative identity disorder, where Bob Reynolds is the Sentry and also the Void, so it explains how the Hulk reacts to him as being the only man he can trust, while simultaneously having the Void as the only character the Hulk is afraid of. And there we have it. The prologue is officially concluded with the birth and subsequent erasure of the Golden Guardian. Next time on Diving into Marvel Comics, we're heading to Hell's Kitchen to kick off Chapter 1, Planet X, with a visit to the Man Without Fear, Daredevil. I'll see you in the next issue.